Million Dollar Secret Season 2 is over. Were you able to predict the millionaire, or were you thoroughly surprised? Let's get into it. Hey y'all, it's Nate. Welcome back to my little corner of YouTube. This video will contain spoilers for Million Dollar Secret Season 2, the finale. So if you haven't seen it yet and you do not know who wins, save this video and come back after you do. You are about to hear my thoughts on the finale, but of course I want to hear yours, so feel free to drop your thoughts below if you do want to participate in the conversation, and give this video a like and a hype before you go. So one thing that I actually hadn't considered at the end of last episode is the fact that Kat actually does have a huge advantage going into the finale. And that's the fact that she's the only one left who has the clue. Kevin was the only other person who knew the real clue, and he left. And so her plan was to use that advantage and take that clue and figure out who the millionaire is before she told everybody else. And Lauren shows us that she has a book of notes. She presented it in a way that was like, this is my secret weapon. I have this book of notes.
I have tabs and I have highlighted everybody's name, about things about them as we have moved through this process.
But wouldn't everybody have a book of notes? I know I could tell that that wasn't a Netflix provided book of notes like they do with some other shows. But how else would you keep track of stuff unless you were writing it down the entire game? Like, I would think that's pretty standard. Maybe not. Maybe she's the only one to think of it. So Peter tells us that for the final group challenge, there will be no trophy room, obviously, because we're getting down to the wire. The winners get what I think is an even bigger prize, and that's the fact that the two winners from the group challenge get to decide who from the losing team goes home. When they were picking teams and Kaleb ended up on Kat's team, I actually thought that was really good for him, because at this point in time, Kat had been caught in so many lies that everybody pretty much thought she was the millionaire. Otherwise, why would she be lying like this? And so he was in a good spot, because in my mind, I was like, if it comes down to them losing, she's gonna go home because everybody thinks she's guilty. Well, everybody, there's two people left, but they think she's guilty, so of course she's gonna go home. It's easy. So it actually worked out better for Kaleb being teamed up with her, because if it came down to them two going home, she was likely gonna go home. I really enjoyed this final group challenge. I've been talking about this game being a game of memory all season, and this really tests your memory. Actually, I think the final two, this group challenge and the final solo challenge, were both a testament of memory, but this really did test your memory throughout the duration of the game. They had these tiles, and all of the tiles had some facts that happened throughout the game. Some of them were true, some of them were false. And these were really specific things. Asking what somebody wore on this specific elimination night, asking what somebody said on their way out when they got eliminated. I think there was a clue about Lauren T living in Australia.
Lauren T lived in Australia for 2 years. Yeah, I believe so.
I lived in Australia for a year.
And the thing about the way that the human mind works is that you'll remember her saying that she lived in Australia, but you're not going to remember that, or let me just say for me, I would not remember the little detail of how long it was. So I would see that and be like, yeah, of course. She did mention something about Australia, so this must be true. But it's that 1 year versus 2 years. So it really is kind of like very fine-tuned, for lack of a better word. The clues are very fine-tuned. Which, by the way, 100% things I would have forgotten. Unless somebody said something on their way out that really stood out, that was like, fuck all y'all or something like that, I'm unlikely to remember because it's insignificant. It just goes right over your head. You have no idea that's going to come back and be a thing that you have to do. And I'm trying to remember if this is a game that they did last season, but I can't remember. I know they did the box switch game last season, but I can't remember if they did this one. I like this one though. They should keep this in the rotation. And Lauren's strategy for this game, I thought, was great. Nick was in the pool and she was the runner / guesser. And so her strategy was to go through all of the tiles up front and turn over the ones that she knew were false. Process of elimination. This is probably a strategy that I would use. It's just like taking a test, right? When you get a standardized test and you're not sure on the answers, if you could 100% eliminate the ones that you know are not true, you could better your odds. And so I think that was a great off-top strategy, and I think doing it that way was part of the reason that she ended up winning. But I thought that was a great strategy off top. One thing I don't understand is why the pool person, this being either Nick or Kat, didn't double check the tiles that they were being handed. Nick explicitly says that he didn't do it. We didn't hear if Kat did it or not, but I didn't see her doing it. Peter didn't say you couldn't. If I were the person in the pool, I would be looking at every fact on the back and being like, I also 100% know that this is true, and I would put those down. And if I came across some that I didn't know, I would put them the reverse side, clue up, so that when it comes down to it and Peter says you have this many wrong, I would know exactly where they are and I wouldn't have to figure out which one it was. Or if they needed to be right side up because the puzzle needed to be completed, then I would turn over the ones I wasn't sure about last so that I would 100% remember where they are. This strategy of just assuming that the person up there knows it is kind of you putting your faith in their hands. So in my opinion, strategy was lacking on both sides when it comes to the people who were in the pool. And it simply came down to who found the incorrect towels first. And exactly what I thought was going to happen did happen. They thought that Kat was the millionaire. That automatically made her the one that was going to go home. At least in Lauren's eyes, Nick was more like, well, if we know she's the millionaire, let's keep her in the game. And Lauren was more like, I want a chance of having that money in my box, so we need to send her home so that it randomly selects again. Kat knew that she was top pick at this point. That prior elimination put a huge target on her back. So she decides to go into overdrive and start trying to figure out if she could nail down who that clue belonged to. I was so nervous when she was talking to Kaleb about his hobbies and if he's into fashion, because Kaleb does not have a good track record with being the millionaire. And so I was like, oh, this man is about to tell her everything. She about to figure out that is him. But thankfully he doesn't. I think the problem is that at this point in the game, with only 4 people being left, he picked up very easily on what she was doing. He also knew that she was the last person in the trophy room, and so he already knew that the clue was fake. So he had an idea that maybe she was digging for stuff. Also, the way that she asked was very random. Of course, this could have been cut up in post, but I didn't hear any cuts in it, so I'm thinking that this is the way it happened. She goes from asking him about his real estate career to talking about if he's into fashion. What makes you make that jump? Like, to me, that's not a natural occurring jump that you would make in conversation, and so it seemed obvious.
I went and got my real estate license, and everybody said I was crazy, but I've been able to make a living for the last nearly 20 years.
Are you like a fashion person?
Clearly you're digging for answers based on some type of information that you have. And that would have even been obvious to me, and I wouldn't even be good at playing this game. Now at dinner, of course, they're both pleading to save themselves in this house. Kat goes home, and honestly it was time for her to go home. And then we are left with the final challenge, which is literally a game of memory.
I will reveal 20 objects arranged in this small bureau for 30 seconds. Then I will cover them, and you will name as many objects as you can.
Because Kaleb is the millionaire, he got an advantage in this memory game, and the advantage was that he got 3 extra points added to whatever his total was. Now his strategy was, I want to get enough of them right, but I don't want to get too many right, because then people might realize that I had the extra 3 and they might nail down that I'm the millionaire. And I'm gonna be honest, when I first heard him say that, I thought it was dumb as hell. Maybe dumb isn't the right word, but maybe risky is what I mean. The person who remembered the least amount of items in the memory game was going to have a disadvantage in the box switch game. And that disadvantage was huge. It's that they don't have an opportunity to move one of the boxes. And so why would you risk being the person to come in last? He had no idea how good Nick and Lauren's memory was, so it really was kind of a gamble where he landed. So I just didn't think it was a good move. But then Nick gets 19, Lauren gets 12, and Kaleb almost perfectly lands smack dab in the middle, getting 12 plus his 3. So it really looks like he didn't do anything either way because he's in the middle. Great cover for him being the millionaire, but not so great for other aspects of the game. I want to know how Kaleb was chosen to go first in the box switch game, because any other time we have a challenge, Peter always says, I've randomly selected who's going first, or let's pull a key out of the bag, or something like that. And he didn't say that this time. He just said, Kaleb's going first.
Swap the contents of one box with another, or do nothing. Kaleb goes first.
My theory is that the person who won the memory game, that being Nick, because he got 19, he got the highest number of items right. My theory is that Nick, that person who won, gets to go second in the box switch game, because going second in the box switch game is the better position. And so it makes sense that Nick would have gone second if that's how they decided it. And if that is the case, then Kaleb fucked up his own game. He should have come in first with the most items remembered. And he said that he remembered other items. He was like, I could have named the apple, I could have named this, I could name that. I just didn't want to because I didn't want to come in too high. But what would be the disadvantage of coming in too high? At that point, if they think you're the millionaire, okay, it doesn't matter because you're going to get to go second and move the box second. You know that you're the millionaire. You know that he's not. So you already have an advantage of knowing. So why risk not getting the highest number? I just don't understand that. If I was the millionaire, I would for sure want to have access to my box last. I had actually forgotten what the final game was, and then I remembered that we saw it last season. This game is interesting because a lot of it comes down to chance, and I don't know how I feel about that. I guess technically some psychology comes into play because you can ask the other person, hey, did you switch the box? Do you think this? Do you think that? But at the end of the day, you have no idea. It all comes down to just you 50-50 guessing it right. Or I guess not 50-50, I guess. Don't ask me to do math. It's 3 people. You do the math. I wonder if there's a version of Million Dollar Secret where once it gets down to the final 3, then the millionaire just wins. You know what I mean? Because at that point, there are no more secret agendas. There are no more trophy rooms. There's no more games. So you really did did just win the game. This whole box switching thing leaves it up to too much chance, and something that we've been talking about all season, it kind of leaves it up to production. Production can 100% be like, we want this person to win. Go in there and put that money in whoever box they want to. You know what I mean? Like, and production desperately needs to get their little grubby hands off of this show. So I just think final three, then you won. Like, you beat the game. You beat the system. But maybe I just don't like the game of chance. I'm not a gambler. Okay, so maybe that's just me. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Before the game actually gets started, they do get a chance to talk to each other. Basically, this is an opportunity for them to suss out who the millionaire is. And Lauren says something that I just think is so badass.
I'm not going to ask any questions, and I'm not going to answer any either.
I loved it because, listen, you're not getting nothing out of me. I'm not telling you anything, and I'm not asking you anything. I don't have the opportunity to go in there and switch the box, so you're not getting anything from me. I love that she did that. I thought it was good for her game. Some other people should have taken this strategy early on in the game, and maybe they would have still been in the game. And in that moment, they all were kind of tapping into that psychological part of it. Lauren wasn't saying anything because she was trying to convince them that she had something to hide so that the money could start moving around and possibly end up in her box. Because she didn't have any other options. That was all she had. It was a good strategy. Kaleb is asking Lauren questions because he's trying to throw Nick off and make Nick think that Lauren is guilty. And Nick has caught on to Kaleb, and he's like, Kaleb, you're guilty. In addition, Nick is like, but I'm going to make you think that I think Lauren is the one who has the money. And it works because that's exactly what Kaleb thinks. And he uses that thought process to decide to go in there and not move the money out of his box.
I choose to leave my box and the contents right here.
But before Nick takes his turn, he gets the opportunity to talk to Kaleb. And in that conversation, he says, yeah, actually, I don't think it's Lauren. I think it's you. I think you have the money. And I know Kaleb was shaking in his cowboy boots because how you gonna tell me that after I already went in there? You know I can't do anything now. That was definitely a power play by Nick because what are you gonna do? You can't go back into your game. Your turn is over. So I could tell you exactly what I think now. I'm going to leave you on the cliffhanger before I walk in here that I think is you. And I know that you thought that I thought it was somebody else. So that probably means you didn't move it. Here's the thing. I think a lot of us maybe assumed that Nick was going to win this game just because of the edit that he's been getting and the fact that he got saved 2 different times when it was clear he should have gone home. And also he's on Perfect Match. So clearly, you know, Netflix likes him. So I'm not surprised that he won the game. On one hand, I think when you look at his edit, yeah, probably he was going to win. Nick does say for him, it all comes back to the poker night. When they were doing that one-on-one poker game and Kaleb was playing a conservative game, he remembers during this final box challenge, oh, Kaleb is not one to gamble. Kaleb doesn't take chances like this. So he used that to basically come to the conclusion that Kaleb wasn't going to take a chance at moving the money out of his box. And if that is actually how he came to that conclusion, then he's correct. Kaleb is not the type to take a chance like that. Nick does say something that really resonates with me.
26. At times it just feels like I'm a little behind. I thought I'd have given more back to my parents by now.
I too feel that way. I feel behind in a lot of aspects of life. I also feel like I would have been able to help my parents out a lot more at this stage in my life. And to be honest, I think that's something that a lot of young people are dealing with because, I mean, not to get into the sociology of it all, but so many of us were told when it comes to things that we were supposed to achieve in life, so many of us were told, just go to college, you'll be able to buy a house, you'll be able to start a family, you'll be able to do all these things. And it's like, yeah, that's categorically untrue. So many of my peers went to college and they can't afford to do shit because of the way that society is. And so it's like this feeling of being lied to. Like I should be a lot further than I am right now. And I know that I'm not alone in that. Nick is not alone in that. It fucking sucks because you feel like you should be doing this when it's like you did everything right and you're still not. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, not to get all into that kind of stuff, but I think you know what I mean. When I heard Nick say that, that was the first time I think I was like, oh, he's not just a pretty boy. Like he actually has some substance to him. So I thought that was nice. Also, someone mentioned in my other video that Kaleb had spoken about how he's an award-winning real estate agent. And I said it depends on who's handing out the awards. Because he said he's a real estate agent in a town with less than 300 people.
I am going back to a loving wife. I'm going to sell houses in a town of less than 300 people.
Who the hell are you selling real estate to, the ants? In a town of less than 300 people, that means that those people have been settlers in that town since the beginning of time. Those houses have been in the family for generations. No one's buying the real estate. Who's moving to a town of 300 people unless they retiring, but it don't sound like it because it sounds like it's the same 300 people it's been. And so of course you're going to be award winning when you're the only one selling the real estate. Of course he wins the award when he's going against himself. This season of Million Dollar Secret was interesting. I hope that Netflix is watching and maybe taking in some of the feedback to maybe be less producey about it next season. If it gets a next, I think it will. But we won't know until that happens. I definitely want to know your thoughts on the finale. Were you able to pick up on the fact that it was going to be Nick, or were you surprised, like I said at the top? I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. You coming back in, Shadow? One of us. One of us. I don't want to be one of you. Shadow. What are you doing, sir? Leave that alone. No, you don't need that. You don't need that. I promise you. Yeah, I am talking to you, sir. You don't need the periscope. Come on. These kids these days. I'm going to count to 3. He doesn't know numbers, by the way. 1. If you don't know anyone with rabbits, having a rabbit is like having a teenager all the time. They're sassy as hell. I know they get a rep of being like a cutesy little pet, but they sassy. I know you heard me call him. What's the word I'm looking for? And Kaleb ended up on, what is that girl's name? Spoken about how he's a reward.